What are your obsessions these days?
Well, unfortunately, I think they're as they always were, which is just books, records, films, all the things that I was very passionate about a decade ago are still quite strong, which is something that's quite surprised me, I expect, but I still get very obsessive about. I'm still quite principally a fan.
So you spend all your time when you're not working, what, going to see films, sitting at home reading books?
Yes I do. I don't go to see films. I watch them at home. I don't go out.
Why not? Is it a pain in the neck being recognised and things like that?
Well, I wouldn't say pain in the neck. It's sometimes quite difficult. I tend to be recognised more than I actually expect to be recognised. I often don't really feel like a huge media face that one would instantly recognise, but I'm constantly recognised wherever I go, even by, you know, middle-aged taxi drivers, which certainly surprises me, because obviously I'm not on that, I'm not, for instance, a Boy George figure, whom everyone knows, regardless of whether one is interested in pop music or not. But I do get surprised at the number of times that I'm stopped, which is quite constantly.
How do you react?
It's confusing because it really depends how one is approached. And if one is approached very nervously, then I tend to be nervous. And if people tend to be aggressive, then I tend to be aggressive. So it's something that really I just pick up from the person who approaches me.
Would you rather they didn't do it at all?
Well,
not to be horrible or dismissive of your fans, but would you rather not deal with it?
Well, it's generally quite a clumsy thing. It's very clumsy, and that's quite painful sometimes. But I wouldn't say that I would rather it not happen.
Well, no, of course not, because you did it yourself, didn't you?
Well, of course, yes, I did. But I don't think that. I wish there was a very easy way to deal with it, but there isn't really.
Are you interested in any causes that might require you to, make a stand in public as a pop star? I don't know, anti-nukes, party politics, things like that. I mean, apart from the vegetarian thing, which is well known.
Right, but it's, to me, the most important. So that's really the only thing that I feel extremely guilty and embarrassed at the fact that I don't go out every day and take part in some extraneous activity, or quite violent and strong activity.
Not like belonging to the Animal Liberation Front or something like that.
Yes, exactly. I do feel extremely guilty. But otherwise, I don't really think there's anything that I particularly feel terribly moved about. The nuclear situation is just, the anti-nuclear situation rather, is just so awful and so beyond people's control that there's not really a great deal that people can do.
Oh, surely popular opinion has some bearing on these things.
Well, apparently not. It doesn't seem to. And people generally protest and receive no media coverage whatsoever. So, I don't know. I think rather than a peaceful protest, it will take something very violent and very strong in order to state people's rejection of nuclear weapons. I think there's no point, any peaceful protest, there's just no point. There's no point giving speeches or even marching, things like that. It's nebulous now. Stronger action is needed, I think.
You feel the same way about South Africa and things like that? Is that something where world opinion can make a difference?
Well, I don't really have an answer for that. I'm very confused about that. Next question.
How you regard other people in your line of work, because your attitude has always seemed to be sort of not of the process. Therefore, what do you think when you look at somebody like, say, George Michael, who's sort of done it all the very conventional way and has actually, reached the pinnacle or whatever? I mean, do you feel a lurking admiration or contempt or something in between?
Well, it's quite difficult because I don't really meet that many pop stars, but when I do, I generally find that they're very nice. And even though I could be very overtly critical about what they do and why they do it. I expect that, and I feel that people just simply do what they can, and they do it in the way that in the only way that they can, and everybody has their own different rules, really. Most of it I don't really approve of, but if that's how they want to do it, then so be it, really. But generally, the usual guided path throughout popular music is not really one that I've ever felt I could conceivably take and really be successful. Like, I don't really believe that I could be a successful pop star in the George Michael sense. I don't really think I could do that very well. So, but some of them are very nice people.
Why couldn't you do it? It's a question of self-belief, or...
Yes, I mean, it's that completely. It really is that completely. Sometimes I find it very hard to appear on pop shows and things like that, and in very simplistic pop magazines. I don't really feel that it's my place somehow. I don't really belong there.
Well, that might be interpreted as being a bit snooty. I mean, do you think you're above it?
Well, no. Well, yes. I mean, I'm certainly above it. I mean, intellectually, I'm definitely above it. But it's not it's not because of snooty reasons. It's just not my patch. It's not really where I feel that I have anything to contribute, really.
Do you get self-conscious about things like that?
Well, extremely self-conscious, yes. I mean, when I've been on television and I look awful and I see it later, you know, it haunts me for months and months and months.
So do you ever, in the course of your work, because I mean you do some of these TV things and stuff like that, as you say, you do run into other musicians. I mean, can you think of an instance of anybody you've ever run across who you actually thought, this is somebody I might have something in common with and I would like to get to know?
Well, I'm very good friends with Pete Burns, and I'm good friends with Lloyd Cole. So they're two people, I think, who are obviously quite extreme characters. There's not really anybody else, I don't think. There are certain people I know, and it's been quite nice, and we've exchanged letters occasionally, but I don't see them religiously, you know, day in, day out. But Pete Burns I see quite a lot.
What's your home like?
I have a flat in Chelsea which is very dark. It's in quite a big old Victorian house, and the flat is at the back and it's very dark and it has no natural daylight. So I live.
Is that why you chose it?
Yes, I mean that was the deciding factor. That swayed me completely. So it's very closed. It's very away from the world. Nobody can get to me, and if there was a fire, I would probably die. So it's a very insular little private borough, really. That's how I live. I suppose you live in a modern masonette, do you?
Pretty much like that, yes. Is it full of knickknacks and souvenirs and pictures and things?
It's full of books, yes, and pictures and records, things like that. Typical things, and old furniture. It's a very musty place.
I'd heard that one of your former abodes was decorated with lots of framed photos of yourself and of James Dean.
Yes, yes.
Have you taken them with you?
Mm-hmm. What?
Have you taken them with you? Are they all in this
Oh,
flat?
yes, and even I have even more now, yes. So they're all around the walls, which is a pleasant sight.
You still maintain your interest in him?
Yes, it's waned a bit, it's wilted a little bit, but it's still there, definitely. I still collect things when I see them, quite rare books and so on.
As what? As an icon or something? Or were you interested in the man and what he was like?
I think I was slightly more interested in him as a symbolist rather than as an actor. I quite liked the films, but I was never dramatically obsessive about the plots. But I think as a symbolist, James Dean, I find a very, very interesting thing, very interesting subject.
Did you have some sort of game plan worked out? I mean, when you started being in a group, of, you know, the process? I mean, did you take it on quite on that sort of level rather than just being in a group and getting on down? Or did you have it all worked out about image? And things like that?
Yes, it was. I mean, it was never principally designed for, if you like, fun or recreation. It did have a very critical, planned edge to it. It was very important that certain things happened in the way that they did, and certain things unravelled themselves in a very particular way. It wasn't just a matter of, as I say, fun or things like that. Heaven forbid.